throwback jams. You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the African Queen, and you are listening to Power Plug Radio. This is Taboo Talk. Excuse me, but I'm laughing at my producer over there giggling. So I want to let you know that you can find us everywhere. You can find us on Alexa. You can find us on the Play Store. You can find us in the Google Store. You can go find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and if all else fails, and YouTube. And if all else fails, you can go to www.powerplugradio.com and listen to us. We are a 24/7 throwback jam radio station, Black owned here in the Berg. So welcome. It's been a minute since we've been on. I have been jet setting all over the place. I have been to Colorado, Cleveland, and for the first time in my life, California. And it was pretty cool. So I want to introduce my co-host for the night. His name is LaDon Hedden. He is calling in to be a part of the show, and he is from Cleveland. Hello, LaDon. How you doing?
Good evening, African Queen. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you for being here. So before we get started on our topic today, we're going to just talk a little bit. He and I are actually going to start a show together called No Music Breaks. And I'm going to let LaDon tell you a little bit about the show.
Well, the plan is to take music that is important to us, and we plan on dissecting it, kind of breaking it down to see how it affects us personally, emotionally, and how it affected the culture. What impact did this have on American culture and specifically Black American culture? So these are things we're going to kind of break down and dissect, and I really look forward to doing these kind of things with you, African Queen. You're an awesome person who knows these kind of things, and I think it's going to generate fantastic discussion.
I think so too, and I think the song that I chose is going to kind of surprise people. My first song, I'm not going to give any hints, but it is not anything that someone would think that I listen to at any time in my life. But it's a song that means a lot to me. So I'm looking forward to doing that. That show will be starting in October of this year. And I hope everyone will listen, and you'll hear more about the show as time gets closer. So tonight, we are going to talk about a subject that honestly touches anyone, whether they have children now or because we all were once children at one time. So this topic will impact us all. And it's around sexuality with children, and we can go in so many different directions. We're going to try and keep ourselves reined in on this one. So one of the things I want to say before we go is please, if you're listening in, you can also go and watch us on YouTube. But also you can watch us live on Power Plug Radio. Live on Facebook on our Power Plug Radio page. And just go in and listen and share and get as many people on as possible so that we can get people listening and chiming in. So I just want to get started with this topic. I know that for me as a child, I was raised kind of on two different sides. My mother and father, they weren't ultra conservatives when it came to sexuality, but then my grandparents on both sides of my family they were like tripping, so they didn't even like the fact that I was a tomboy. They always told me that's not ladylike, and it's not nice, it's not a good thing to basically, they were telling me it's not a good thing for a girl to be masculine in any way whatsoever. And it kind of started a thing for me being self-conscious. It's kind of like the same thing when you tell a boy that he's not allowed to play with a Barbie doll. Why? Because he's a boy. He's not supposed to play with Barbie dolls. So for me, this impacted me early on in my age because I got two different messages from two different sides of my family. My mother and father did not raise me, to be ashamed of the human body in any way, shape, or form. But then you turn around and you go to your grandparents' house, you know, and I had to learn really quick that what I did at home, I couldn't do at Nana and Papa's house. I couldn't do it at Grandma and Aunt B's house, because I would go over there and be like, oh, you know, it was nothing for me to come out the bathroom because I forgot my soap or my towel, and I don't have any clothes on. My dad would just be like, oh, the soap is over there. My grandparents would whoop my ass. And so I had to learn really quick that I actually was living in two different lives. Now, with my son, I tried my best to raise him in a free manner. You, on the other hand, you have two girls and a boy. So how are you handling that?
As a father, it's different. So something you brought up is kind of a generational change. And even in that, it sounds like it almost an overcompensation, like an overcorrection, right?
Yeah.
So your grandparents were from an age where it was customary for a young lady to act ladylike in hopes that she would attract a man who would eventually be her husband and take care of her.
Right.
Well, our society has changed a whole lot. So, and doing that, kind of like you said, you overcorrect. Well, nope, you corrected with your son. You're like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make him feel self-conscious, or he has to carry himself a certain way. Now, one of the things I find a challenge as a father of two teenage girls and a teenage son is how our current culture, and I mean African American culture, American culture, is conditioning them, but differently. Right? So my daughters still kind of view themselves or their bodies as something to be protected and to be cherished. And my son is more in a conquering mode, if you will. So, some might use the term mannish. I was similar at that. No, see, and and the difference is he's doing this at a younger age, or at least exhibiting this in a younger age than I did. Okay. Right? So part of the reason I think is because our society is just totally cool with that. So here in Cleveland, Ohio, I was listening to a radio station, and they're in the black radio station. They were playing a song. It wasn't WAP, but it was something along the lines of something that Cardi B or somebody might do. So, and he played the nearly unedited version. Okay. Whereas I noticed on the more pop radio stations, they played an edited version. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, this is the exact same song, but why do you allow some of these words to fly by on the black radio stations versus the pop? And I'm going to use that term, pop radio station, because that's what they call themselves. When I called there, and funny enough, the DJ who actually was working there lived in Cleveland Heights. In fact, in the same apartment building that I lived in at one point. And what he did was, he said, well, I said, man, why do you think my children should be able to listen to that? And he said, well, if you don't want your kids to listen to it, don't turn on the radio. Mm. So what he literally is saying to me is, they cannot participate in our current culture because he didn't want to make certain changes. Whereas a pop radio station owned by the same parent company would censor their music just slightly more than the African American or black radio station. So I bring that up to make this point that children listen to these words and lyrics and they miss a lot of emotion in the act of sex.
Yeah.
Right? This is now, to my son, this is a thing he has to do. Right? Almost feels like it's a rite of passage. Right? Yep. I'm not a young man if I don't just get me something. Mm-hmm. And my daughters are the opposite. They're throwing up a shield. But again, they listen to all this music. I can't say don't listen to Cardi B or don't go on TikTok, don't go to YouTube. What could I possibly say? Yeah. But what I can try to do is give them tools to view these things. And that's the biggest challenge for me. I'm not a psychologist. I have no idea how the best way. Now I know everyone has their own things they've tried. Some things work, but that's part of parenting, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've got 3 kids, and I would not raise the 3 of them. I do not deal with the 3 of them in the exact same way because they're 3 totally independent, different human beings.
Right.
And I think that kind of conditioning, that's what I mean when I say conditioning, before it was done at a family or more personal level, right? Your parents, your grandparents. Now it's more of a cultural level.
Right.
It's social media. It's, it's movies, it's music, So those are some of the challenges I look at. Go ahead.
So you have teenagers, and I have a completely grown adult, and I sit back and think about how I was with him as a kid, and the way I raised Christopher is a lot different than the way you're raising your babies, and
Right.
Definitely it's different than the way that I was raised. I tried to take a mixture of what my parents did and mix it kind of with the times. I did raise him not to be ashamed of his body. I raised him to feel that he could ask me questions when it came to the human body, to sexuality. I tried my best not to be judgmental of any choices or decisions that he would make. Those motherly instincts would kick in, but for the most part, I wanted him to be free, and I wanted him to feel as though he could talk to me, and so, but I remember being criticized because of the way I raised him, other friends, because my friends were raised in a more conservative manner. Your body's supposed to always be covered up, and you weren't supposed to be, as they would put it, outwardly sexual, but that is such a broad term, and people can mail that term to fit whatever they want it to fit. And so for me, I was a tomboy growing up. I was a cute little girl. Now get me wrong, when they put me in dresses and did my hair and put all the little pigtails and stuff like that, I was gorgeous. But that is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to have on some sneakers and some shorts, and I wanted to climb some trees and play football in the street. And,
Right.
And and even growing up as a teenager, even now, and I'm 51 years old, I am so much more comfortable in some jeans and sneakers or Timberlands than I am in a dress. I feel awkward.
Well, one of the things that I believe you're saying too is, again, generational, right?
Yes.
You just wanted to be a kid.
I did.
And everyone around you was looking at you as a potential sexual thing.
Yep.
Eventually, one day, you would be, we got to make her pretty, because one day we got to marry her off. And you're like, can I climb a tree right now?
That's all I want to do. Can I just? That's it.
See, now, my mother kind of was similar in that she was open to talk about sex.
Okay.
Right. After my father died when I was very young, but my mother wanted to make sure that that sex being just a natural act, sharing of energies between 2 humans. if we're getting it to the base action itself, that it was a natural thing, and that your body was fine, and kind of similar to how you may have raised Christopher.
Okay.
But it was difficult for me to take that information in, because much like my son today, I was thinking of more of a conquest thing, right?
But that's how boys are raised.
I know. I know.
That's how boys are raised.
It wasn't how I was. And at the time when we were younger, we still kind of cherished the idea of love with sex. At some point, we learned to detach emotion from sex. And then even in our culture and in our music and what Hollywood released, that we could easily just detach the emotion. We were still trying, and me, I'm saying, growing up, we're still trying to equate love with sex. So this is a step within there. But I was just trying to, as a kid, now I'm talking about as a young teenage boy who was very, let's say, rambunctious.
Mannish.
Well,
Mannish.
and hey, mannish, sure.
Mannish, okay.
All right, I'll go in there.
I'm just saying.
No, you're fine. So, my idea was always to feign emotion until I got what I wanted.
Okay.
And in some cases, there might be emotion. So that was something like, even though my mother was trying to tell me these wonderful, beautiful things, my young prepubescent and pubescent brain was not able to receive her message.
Hormones.
And it's really right. And it's really hormonal. It is hormonal. All jokes aside, it is a truly hormonal thing that I really didn't fully understand until I not only physically matured, until I mentally matured. And it is different for boys. But just as you said, like, even in the music today, right, in our culture today, and we'll say, I'm going to go with hip-hop, rap music, right? Mm-hmm. For a man to degrade another man, he uses a woman. He'll say, that's why I did this to your girl. Yep. She did this to me. Your girl did this to me. As if, again, we're still operating on some older conditioning of she belongs to me once I decide to have sex with her. She is mine and belongs to me.
Right.
And if anyone else has sex, then they took her. Oh, he took your girl. Not that she made a decision. Oh, he took your girl.
But that's because we're objects to be possessed. That's
okay.
I mean, and I'm not saying that we are, but I'm saying that is a lot of times how it comes off. And it doesn't just come off that way for men. I remember as a young woman, but let me take that back. As a girl, listening to, because I was nosy as hell, so I would listen in on the adult conversations. Yeah. And I remember all the women would gather in the kitchen, during family events and all that kind of stuff, and they would talk. And I would listen, and it was never about what the woman wanted. It was never about the pleasure of the woman. It wasn't about being happy. It was always about taking care of your man, giving him what he wanted, no matter how you felt about it, and it always, like, growing up, I remember watching the movie The Color Purple, and my mother made me read the book before she would let me go see the movie. So I remember reading the book, and then I remember going to see the movie, and that one line, he just climbs up on me and does his business. And does his business. And then it was like, it clicked, because then what those conversations that I heard the grown women having, these were grown women, like my grandmother and my aunts, but they had been conditioned, we were objects, and then we were trained to see ourselves as an object to keep our man happy. There was no, what he does for you. Well, what he does for you is he keeps a roof over your head and food on your table. That's what he does for you.
And so it sounds like, even in times have since changed, but it sounds like, and even in TV, even in TV, that sex is only good for men and is supposed to be a chore for women. Like,
because only whores enjoy sex. You didn't know that?
Oh my goodness!
I mean, it's the truth. Sluts and whores enjoy sex. Everyone else does it because it's a part of their duty.
It's a part of their duty. Their
wifely duties. And a woman who has sex for pleasure, she has to be either a whore or a slut. I mean, and that's unfortunate, but even to this day, you still hear that, because the girl who has sex with the boy in high school, or the girl who has multiple, no, it doesn't matter if the guy she's dating has had 25 girlfriends. But the fact that in the last 2 years she has had 4 different guys at the college, she's a slut. She's easy. You know, so because only sluts and whores enjoy sex.
Even that term, easy, means she is supposed to be difficult. She is supposed to be difficult and a challenge for me to, again, I think that's the way we're conditioned. And we don't even realize that as children, what, kind of like what you're saying, like you were told you had to wear a dress, you had to do this, you had to do that, and boys were conditioned. So like adults were pretty much telling us how we should act.
Yes.
They were telling us what was gay and what was straight. They were telling us what that's manly, that's not. Right? And as a child, you really don't understand that. You understand you have some extra nerves, and when you rub down there, it feels good. and you understand but that's all you understood.
That's all
you didn't understand.
It wasn't anything more. You know, I remember when Christopher was little, I dated this guy, really nice guy. Christopher loved him to death. But I remember this is when the Power Rangers were like, they had just come out and they were at the hilt of their popularity. And so one day we went to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal. Christopher wanted a Happy Meal because he had the Power Rangers, and that's what was out. So
gotcha. He was conditioned to want a Happy Meal. He
was conditioned to want a Happy Meal so he could get his little Power Ranger figurine.
Exactly.
And so we get there, and he gets the Happy Meal, and he's sitting in the back seat. And I remember Tony got it. He handed it to me. I handed Christopher his drink, and then I handed him his Happy Meal. And Chris didn't care nothing about that food. All he wanted was the Power Ranger. So he pulled the Power Ranger out, and it was the pink Power Ranger.
Oh, okay.
And Tony was driving, and I remember he looked in the rearview mirror, and he saw Christopher with the pink Power Ranger.
Okay.
And he politely pulled the car over, reached in the back seat, and took it from him.
Well, first of all, I like how you use a real names with all these people, but second, second, so that I'm understanding, Christopher's totally fine getting any of the Power Rangers.
It was a Power Ranger. The pink Power Ranger kicked people's ass just like everybody else.
She did. This is true.
She was a badass.
She knew martial arts just as much as the yellow, blue,
and he didn't
green,
care
or
about
red
the yellow Power Ranger. Tony did not care, and he did not care about the yellow Power Ranger because
she was a girl.
She was a girl, but it wasn't the fact that she was a girl. It was the color. So for Christopher to get a pink Power Ranger, and I'm like, why are you taking the Power Ranger? And he was like, it's pink. He's a boy. He's not supposed to be playing with a pink Power Ranger. It's a girl. And I was like, but so is the yellow Power Ranger. And he said, but no one knows that.
Well,
and I'm like,
the target audience would.
Yes, but I'm like, so you're really gonna take his Power Ranger from him because it's pink? And
that's unfortunate.
And he was like, yeah. And my baby was back there with the boo-boo crying face because he didn't give a damn if it was a pink Power Ranger. But he had been conditioned to believe that pink is not for boys. Pink is for girls. Even though historically boys were dressed in pink back in the day. Back in the 1700s,
in the early 1900s,
the early 1900s, the 1800s,
yeah,
they were pink was not girl specific, but then media and all that stuff got involved, and now it's pink is for girls and blue is for boys, and the yellow and green is neutral. And
I think it was known that we could condition children. I think that's why. That's why colors had been assigned a gender at that point.
But you know what he said to me when we got home? He said, "Well, if you let him play with the pink Power Ranger, he's gonna be a sissy."
Oh,
I'm like,
the color pink makes. Oh, go ahead.
Right, but
I had not known that.
Serious about this now.
Well, Cameron had a problem in the early 2000s. Then I guess. Huh?
Look,
and Pink Panther.
Yeah.
I guess we can't Pink Panther just because Pink Panther seems kind of like a pimp to me.
He
So
was a pimp,
growing up,
but see,
all right,
our generation didn't think so. You know, it's that whole you're gonna make him a sissy. You're gonna make her, excuse my language, a bull dagger. You're gonna,
Ooh.
because I remember growing up. Like I said, I was very much a tomboy. In middle school, I was still the same way, and I had a friend, and because she was a tomboy just like me, we were teased and called gay.
Really?
Yes, and it hurt my feelings, and
I'm sure it did.
I was like, well, I'm just friends with her. Why I gotta be, why I gotta be all of that? And but yeah, just because I wasn't a big dress girl, look, the couple times I wore a dress to school in middle school, I ended up in fights and suspended from school. I don't like dresses, but yeah, it was like the kids teased us. Why? Because I always wore jeans and shirts, and she always wore jeans and shirts, and I had short curly hair, and she had short curly hair, and even though I was developed, because I developed early, she was not, so we were boyish, and the next thing I know, the rumor was that we were gay.
That's unfortunate.
But that's life, and it's still that way now. We would wish and hope that things were different, but it's not. We talked about this earlier. The young ladies, when they start their cycle.
Okay.
In other countries, when a young woman starts her cycle, it's a celebration.
It's a celebration.
It's right. A celebration of life. Depending on what culture you're talking about.
She's developing into womanhood.
Yep.
She could literally bear children, which is good for the society as a general.
Yep.
To move forward.
The women come together and they talk to her and they celebrate her. Yes, you're right. She is now able to marry, depending on the culture. She's able to bear children, and it's a great thing, but not here.
Yeah.
Not here in the United States. It's a secret. You're not supposed to talk about it. You're nasty and you're untouchable and you're all these things. Now, nowadays you're starting to hear that young girls are having what they call period parties. And so these have become popular like in the last 4 or 5 years. So when a young girl's cycle starts, she invites all of her little girlfriends over, and everything is period themed. Everything is red and red velvet cake and all this kind of stuff. They celebrate the fact that she is now a young lady,
entering womanhood.
Right, but this is very recent. Growing up for me, no, you didn't talk about that. Now my mother was different. But most of my friends, oh no, you didn't dare talk about it, and you were nasty, and you weren't supposed to go swimming, and you weren't supposed to do this, and you weren't. It was just all of these you weren't supposed to, and you weren't supposed to talk about it.
This period party, as a father of a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, sounds like an awesome idea that I totally missed out on. So,
but you train them so that if and when they do have children, that they do it for their daughters.
And I think so. So there is a difference, just even in the 5-year age. My 10-year-old does have a cycle, but she feels open to talk to me just because of our relationship, and I don't make her feel any type of way.
Okay,
this is a natural thing, and when she needs certain things. Now, the unfortunate thing is she's still just 10. Her brain is still 10, while her body can develop. Her brain is still 10, and sometimes she'll need products and not even think, oh, yeah, by the way. And I'm like finding
stuff all over the place.
I'm finding a crime scene in the bathroom. Like, what? Yeah. So, but conversely, my 15-year-old is scared to talk to me about that thing. Yeah. Right? And I won't find out until the last minute or through an aunt. Or her grandmother. Like, oh, the baby needs some pads. And I'm like, well, what? You mean the one in the other room? Why didn't she tell me this? Like, so someone's calling me to tell me to go to the store because my 15-year-old, and again, she was conditioned to not discuss this kind of thing with, I don't know if it's with men or with her father specifically, but she has a feeling about it that the 10-year-old doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. Like, even even though they're raised in the same household, the way they are conditioned, and the way they're conditioned even by the culture is by the music they listen, because she's not listening to the car at 10. She's not listening to the car. That's just not an interest to her. The topics, whether, and just swearing alone isn't enough to, to entice her. Like, oh, I've heard curse words, so I'm not impressed by that. The 15-year-old is a little different, but she's into more pop culture, so she sees where her friends are going. They like it, then I guess I'll follow suit and like it as well. She's still in the I'm trying to fit in phase. So I'm not sure, because what I'm hearing, what you're saying too, is that for women, it is specifically our American culture that makes it terrible. To develop into womanhood is and that's some European Puritan ethic kind of. That came over on the Mayflower. Yeah. Yep. That sounds like, because as we pointed out, tribal cultures see this as a beautiful thing.
Our bodies are beautiful.
This is a positive thing.
Yep. I wear belly beads, and they're called. Some people call them jolly jollies. It was funny when I found out why they were called jolly jollies, and a young woman from Africa told me. She said the reason why they call them, in some areas of Africa, they call them jolly jollies, is because a man gets a jolly feeling when he sees a woman walking and her beads swaying from side to side. But that makes sense, because they are where they are. Their waist beads, they're very sexual. They
move your focus.
They do. They move your focus. They do.
They move my focus.
And I
mean, not that I've ever seen it.
Yes. But it's a thing that allows a woman to express her sensuality and her sexuality, but also, depending on the culture, allows to say, I'm ready to get married. I am ready to procreate. I am a woman now. And for me, growing up, as much of a tomboy as I developed very early. I was first of my friends to get breasts and hips and a butt, and I was the boys noticed me. Unfortunately, not the way I wanted them to notice me. I remember it broke my heart. I went outside one day because we was getting ready to play football, right? And we were playing football, and I remember I got tackled, and the guys didn't let me up.
Oh no!
and I remember feeling hands all over my body.
No!
It broke my heart, because that was the last time I ever played football. But I knew at that point the guys didn't look at me the way they did the summer before.
That's unfortunate.
It was, and it did. Honestly, the crazy part was it didn't break my heart that they were groping me. It broke my heart that I couldn't play football anymore.
Right. Well, not with them guys.
Yeah. And it was, but I realized that they no longer saw me as just Andy. They saw me as like, oh damn, well, look at Andy.
Right.
And I wasn't ready to be seen that way yet. I still wanted to climb the trees, and I still wanted to play football, but I couldn't. I became one of the girls on the sidelines, which was never where I was comfortable. I like to be in the thick of it, but because of the conditioning of them and the way they were taught to look at women, that's how they viewed me. And I have had that issue throughout my life, even at the age of 51.
No, it's unfortunate. So my son, I was trying to explain to him, and he and his friends, why they were attracted to women. And when I told them, I broke it down in a, let's say, most basic elementary way, they thought it was gross. And what I mean by that is, they were like, damn, she got a big ass. Now, this is my 13-year-old son and his 13-year-old buddies. I'm walking around the mall with them.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, you understand why you like her butt and her breasts, right? And they were like, well, yeah, because they're big. No, because if she has a big butt and wide hips, that indicates that she can bear many children. If she has large breasts, that indicates that she could feed your children. So you're really just attracted to her because you want to have babies with her. And they're like, no,
right.
no. But literally, that's what you're getting excited about, procreation. Whether you think about it or not, the whole point, you are looking at this woman as a potential mate to which to procreate.
Yeah.
But most people don't even think on that level. They say, damn, she got big ass. Like, oh man, she got some big old bitties.
Yep.
You know? But this is why, and when I broke it down to them, because they were like, I don't want to have no kids. And I'm like, no, you don't. Not at this age, you do not. But your body does.
Right. Your body recognizes that she's ready and you're ready. And
exactly.
You know, and it's unfortunate. We have to learn to program our children differently. We need to learn how to teach our boys to ask permission. Mm. We need to teach our girls it's okay to say no. I know so many women. I have a sex toy company, and I've done hundreds of parties. And
what's the name of the sex toy company?
It is Sweet Pleasures.
Sweet Pleasure.
Sweet Pleasures, and
All
I can get anything you need. And I'm actually going to be revamping the company, and it's going to be coming back out in 2022. And
thank you for letting me know. I can get anything I need.
You can get anything you need.
Make note. Sweet Pleasure. I can get. Got it.
Anything. But I remember it would so sadden me because I would be at these parties and you know, I talk very freely about sex and sexuality and and these women would be sitting there with these looks on their faces like, oh my God. I was like, oh, they don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, and so I'll never forget, I had a party. It was an all women's party. And we were talking about the best toys to get the best type of orgasm. And this one lady, she was sitting there and she was so quiet. And so finally I kind of tried to like rope her in. And I said, well, you know, what's your opinion? And she said, well, I really don't have one. And I said, well, you know, every woman should have an opinion. You know, you've had an orgasm before. And she just sat there and looked at me. And,
that's unfortunate.
And I said, you have had an orgasm before, right? And she was like,
no,
I don't think so.
Yikes.
And I was like, wow. And everybody, all of us was like, oh, baby, we are so sorry. You know, we didn't say it to her like that, but we were like, oh, my goodness. And so she said, don't get me wrong. I enjoy my husband. She was like, I enjoy my husband, but, you know, and I enjoy the act that we're doing together. But that pleasure, that explosion, all of that you all are talking about right now, I've never had that.
No, that's like watching the first 80% of Usual Suspects movie and then keep walking out in the middle of the movie. Okay, that was a good movie. And you're like,
and never know the end of it.
You know? Never know the end. You really miss it. Yeah, it's a good movie, but you didn't finish.
And until she heard women talk about it, and then how candid we were talking about it at the party, she really didn't know she was missing anything. She said she enjoyed it. It felt good, but she just didn't know that there was any, you know, explosion at the end. She didn't realize that was supposed to happen. And, you know, she never said anything to her husband because she didn't know she was missing anything. Her mother never talked to her.
You said explosion at the end?
That's how she said it.
That doesn't mean the end, though, right? Because I thought that you can continue. I'm sorry.
No, but you're right. But for the most part.
Why does it have to stop?
Well, for a lot of people, once that happens, it's over.
Explosion in the middle.
Nope. No explosions in the middle. It's the explosion at the end. But I felt sorry for her. So what we did, we talked her through it, and we said, okay, look. This is what you need to get. This is what you need to do. But you also need to go home and talk to your husband. This is something that y'all should do together. Hopefully he is open to it. If he's not open to it, then, you know, when he ain't home or when you in the shower or something like that, you know, and I said, we're going to come back in about 2 months. And so we did. And she came to the table with the biggest grin on her face. So, but this woman was in her freaking 30s. Her 30s. And she said, but she remembered sex was not something that you talked about. When her cycle started, her mother she told her mom. She said her mom rushed her in a room and she said, wait, this is this and this is this and this is what you do. She said when she got married to her husband, she was a virgin. Nobody talked to her about her first sexual experience, what it was supposed to be like. No one said anything to her. So she went into her honeymoon night completely blind and scared to death.
Oh, and see, and that's the social conditioning, right?
Yes.
From youth, that she couldn't even enjoy that. In fact, something that I learned recently, I believe you had told me that cases of sexually transmitted diseases had gone up in senior living facilities.
Oh yeah, especially in a couple places here in Florida.
Right. So
yeah, but that's because
I'm believing
they're
that
sexually
to be the case. Correct.
They're free.
Correct. They're free, and they're not bound by this. At this point, they don't care about people's opinions of them, or if someone thinks they're a slut or loose or anything else. But as a child or as a young adult, you're conditioned to do that. And it wasn't until this woman even had because something sex isn't something that people talk about. She didn't even until she had to know about orgasms or how they could be until she was in a free and open conversation with others that may have had that.
Right.
So again, that's that conditioning from a kid. And then as you get older, you're like, I don't care what anybody, like at that point, you're still caring what society thinks of you, what your parents think of you, what this potential mate could think of you or not. And at the time, I guess by the time you're living in a living facility, you're like, look, I'm trying to just enjoy these last days.
Look, I got these blue pills. Look, the man is like, I got these blue pills, so it can just stay up all day long. And the women are like, and I can't get pregnant. Those are the only things they care about. They don't, the STD rates are high as I don't know what in those areas. And these aren't all single people. These are, a lot of them are married. That like the swingers are going on in these senior living facilities. Okay, they be swapping and having a good old time, but they're free. They don't feel I'm gonna die soon. So what if I get gonorrhea? I can go get a shot. So what if I can go take a pill, and they have this sexual freedom where we should be able to mentally be sexually free our whole lives, but we are conditioned to believe for a woman it's a duty, for a man it's essential, and it's something that he deserves. And there are many women who will tell you, and some that will not, and that's another problem. Women need to learn how to speak up, but there are many women who will tell you that it's when he gets his, it's done. It's no.
Wait, that's not how it works. I'm kidding.
What?
I'm kidding.
But for many, when he gets his, it's done. And you see that. How many? Okay, porno. Now, back in the day when I was a kid, you had to go to the back room of the video.
Back in the day. You said when I was a kid and the back of the video store?
No, I am not a boomer.
Wow, but you use boomer terms is the point I'm saying. You use boomer terms. I just want to make sure I understood. So, back in the day. When you were young.
When I was young.
You went back in the video store and.
We would have to look like, I remember when I was little, that was, you would peek back there. And then the person who was running the store would be like, get out of here, because you weren't supposed to go back there. And then I remember once I was 18 and my girlfriend was like, her boyfriend wanted her to rent a porno for them. And she was scared to go by herself. So guess who went with her? And we had to go back in the back room and everybody was staring at us because here are these two girls going back here to get porn, but but what do kids have to do today? All they got to do is www.pornhub.com. That's it. That's all you got to do. But tell me one porno that you have ever seen that was a real representation of two people who love each other.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I think you're right. And in many cases, young people who do look at porno, they think that is how sex is supposed to be performed.
Yep. That's the way it's
And
supposed
I
to be.
think we forget that they are performers. They are sexual actors. This is acting.
They are.
Now, see, I would love for a woman to quiver and shake every time I touched her. However, and saying yes, yes, yes over and over, but that may not happen in real life.
You may not be doing it right. Now,
Well, hey,
she can fake it.
She can fake, and that's unfortunate. See, I don't want that either. See, and I think just what we were saying earlier is that without, at least for me, without that emotional connection, that physical is not the same. And I think a lot of young people might be missing out on a really good part of sex because the psychological or emotional part is what they're missing. They're just satisfied with kind of like what the young lady you said earlier who never had an orgasm.
Yeah.
They're just satisfied with the physical act of sex, and they're missing out on the very, very important intellectual or psychological or emotional aspect of sex.
Right. They don't understand that part. No one teaches them that. I remember listening to one of those little conversations I wasn't supposed to be listening to when I was a little girl. And my cousin who was older than me was getting ready to get married, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, okay, so they were telling her, well, your husband's gonna be tired, and when he gets home from work, you need to make sure that his meal is ready, and once he takes his shower, and leave him alone and let him rest, and and then when it's time to go to bed, if he wants it, give it to him, and if he don't, ask him if he does, and if he says no, be grateful. She was getting ready to get married, and that was a conversation that she was told. I think she was like 20. She was 20.
It sounds like people were conditioning her to not even enjoy sex.
No, because you're not supposed to. You're only women who enjoy sex are sluts and whores.
Yeah. Well, society would teach that,
yes.
But that has since changed, right? The fact have we corrected or even overcorrected with your Megan Thee Stallions and your Cardi B's? Have we?
It all depends on who's listening to it and who's viewing it and their opinions of it. The whole WAP and the this and depending on who you talk to. What's the young man's name? The gay rapper. Yes, Lil Nas X. Everybody had a fit.
Oh.
Because in his video, Old Country Road or whatever, he had on his cowboy suit and he was all masculine and everything.
He was sexually ambiguous,
when he started stripping on the pole with the devil.
Well, he was going to hell.
He was going straight to hell.
He was sliding his pole down there.
But how dare he? How dare she? How dare Megan Thee Stallion is so free? How they talk about them in the Christian church. Now think about something. You're a young lady or a young man, and you listen to this music and you like it, and you're this, but then you go to church on Sunday, and in the church they're condemning it. Somebody brought up a very good point. Pastor Pritchard brought up a very good point a few weeks back when we were talking about the black church and the black community, and he was saying how for young women, that young woman who got pregnant when she was a teenager, she was set up in the front of the church, and she was belittled, and she was condemned, and in some cases she was banished from the church, and they never said a word about the young man. She was always the one that was wrong. It was like Eve and the apple. And they don't do it as much as they used to, but they still do that depending on the church. And so you're a young person and you're trying to learn yourself, you're trying to explore, you're trying to figure out who you are, and then you go to church on Sunday, and the preacher's up there, and everything that you think of, maybe you're bi-curious, or maybe you're trying to figure out if you like boys or girls or both, or whatever, but not only is the preacher up there preaching it, you going to hell. Your mama is sitting there going, praise the Lord, thank you God, speaking Jesus. How are you supposed to feel?
And you're preventing that person from even experimenting sexually. Like
Yes.
you never even know what you like, or that is interesting. That's unfortunate, but it is interesting because again, that's what we're what's happening to us. Others are dictating how we enjoy our bodies or sharing our bodies with others.
Yes.
And so what do we do, African Queen? What do we do? Do we do anything? Do we try to educate? We
do try to educate. Unfortunately, here in the state of Florida, being in the Bible Belt, it could start very well if we taught actual sex ed in schools here, which we do not. We teach abstinence.
Is that right?
Which is BS, because
and what year is Florida stuck in?
1950, I think.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure.
But it's unfortunate because if anybody remembers what it's like to be a teenager, you are horny because your hormones are raging, and then
are literally telling you need to go procreate.
To do the complete opposite. But so we are seeing, unfortunately, STD rates are rising, and they're not rising from vaginal sex. They're mostly rising from oral and anal sex, because these kids are thinking, hey, it's not really sex, and I'm still a virgin if I do this. So, I mean, honestly, it's going to start at home. We have to get parents who need to have a better understanding of sexuality, because a lot of us don't. Take a class, take a lesson, and then talk to your children. That's what it boils down to.
And take a lesson. So you're telling me as a parent that I need to do some work.
You need to do some work. You have 3 children.
I do.
Who hopefully in their later years will decide what they want to do with their life, whether they decide they want to be married or not, whether they decide that they want to be in a same gender relationship or a heterosexual relationship, but they should not have to go into that situation blind. And they should be able to talk to their parents, because if they talk to their peers, they're not going to get the right answer. I can't tell you how many of my girlfriends in middle school thought that if you kissed a boy, you would get pregnant.
I believe it's pronounced cooties.
No, that cooties was elementary school. Middle school, it was kiss a boy, you get pregnant.
You must have done something different in Florida. Okay, I understand. Florida's a little different than the rest of
it was. We had a boom in our teen pregnancy rates in the 80s, and I remember hearing that. But see, my mother didn't teach me that. My mother taught me the truth. My mother educated me at the level I was at, and that's what we need to do. I'm not telling you to talk to your 10-year-old like you would talk to a 20-year-old. You talk to them, you meet them where they are, you answer their questions, you make it so that they feel comfortable talking to you. You would rather for them to get the truth from you than get a blurred form of the truth from their friends or from porn. So many boys are learning from porn, and that's not something that we want. And I'm gonna let you, as a man, I want you to say the last thing before we close the show out. So what I want you to say is, as a man, how do you think, and as a father raising 3 children, how do you think you're going to move forward with this? Quick, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay, African Queen, no pressure. I do think the advice of educating myself on how to deliver the message. Again, I won't talk to my 10-year-old the same way I talk to my 15-year-old, and I won't talk to my daughters the same way I talk to my son. I do want to stress the beauty of sexuality and sex, and I do believe that the emotion and intellectual aspect needs to be talked about as well. I believe the physical, you have a lot of nerve endings in your genitals. It's just going to feel good. But I think it feels better when your mind is connected to that person. You have a physical connection. And I just need to work on ways to help them understand that this is a beautiful thing, and it's an emotional thing, and it's a physical thing, and that thing can just help you connect to others more freely and in a more positive way.
That's very true. And I want to say thank you, Mr. Hedden, for being a guest host on the show tonight. And I hope you come back again at another time to be on another show.
I am honored, African Queen, and I thank you for inviting me to the show tonight.
Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week. You are listening to Taboo Talk on Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.